While I edit my new shark film, it's about shark culling again, instead of not producing anything, any content for YouTube, I thought I'd start sharing some thoughts I have related to shark culling that are actually within mainstream media, like Hollywood. For example, today I'm going to talk about Jaws. Now, what are the most damaging aspects of Jaws? I'm not one of those people who buys into that you shouldn't make horror films about animals. I don't blame Hollywood for humans retaliating and going out and slaughtering nature. You know, we're the self-declared most intelligent species. Act like it. Do some critical thinking. You know, just because a movie whose goal was to scare you succeeded in scaring you doesn't mean that that movie was based in fact. Jaws was very successful. You know, my girlfriend saw some of these new shark films, and I was like, I don't understand how these scare people. And I was like, okay. And I put on Jaws, and after the opening scene, she was traumatized, like a lot of people. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the scary parts of Jaws. I'm talking about subtle details within it. Take this scene.
And I hooked a 4.5-foot baby thresher shark who proceeded to eat my boat.
Is it true that most people get attacked by sharks in 3 feet of water, about 10 feet from the beach?
Yeah.
And that before people started to swim for recreation, I mean before sharks knew what they were missing, that a lot of these attacks weren't reported.
That's right.
There's a lot to break down here. You know, mentioning that people are bitten X feet from shore in X depth of water. Well, yeah, and that's also where the humans are. So, of course, that's where most people are going to be bitten. You know, this makes me think about the scuba diving statistics. You know, people aren't really bitten scuba diving anywhere near the ratio of inshore activity, you know, bathing, surfing, etc. Why? Because sharks have learned to hunt people in those areas? Hey, sharks use the coast, but the better answer is the sheer numbers, you know, mathematically, statistically. Of course, that's where all the humans are. Chances are that's where a human is going to be involved in an incident with another animal. But the part that really bugs me is inferring that sharks didn't know what they were missing.
Before sharks knew what they were missing, that a lot of the...
You know, humans didn't start recreating in the ocean until a certain period in history. And then sharks had this whole new menu item. And boy, are we easy to kill. Okay. So now sharks, whom we will simultaneously talk about millions of years of evolution, a perfect killing machine. These animals, with a purpose, suddenly abandon that purpose and abandon millions of years of instinct because of some new option. This theme comes up again. I'll just mention it now. When these two men go out and try to catch the shark using a great big hook tied to the pier and attached to his wife's holiday roast. Now, I'm not saying that a shark that doesn't usually eat terrestrial mammals won't at some point go ahead and consume a meal. Opportunistic feeding, calorie intake, but again, you're throwing the millions of years of instinct, you're throwing purpose, you're throwing fulfilling an ecological role all out the window, and implying that the only thing this shark is doing is sitting right there next to the beach, waiting for anything it could possibly eat. The speed with which that shark took the holiday roast, you know, that's what's unrealistic about it. That shark has abandoned everything about being a great white shark. and is just sitting out there waiting for little morsels to be thrown out there, and jumps on them at a moment's notice. Look, a lot of the movie gets kind of ridiculous. I would like to believe that people can see how ridiculous it is, like the end battle. But you also have a shark expert in the film, played by Richard Dreyfuss, Hooper, who continues to feed the audience with his rogue shark hypothesis.
Now, this shark that swims alone.
Rogue.
What's it called?
Rogue.
Rogue.
A great white shark, a stake to claim in the waters off Amity Island.
Shark Week has been guilty of trying to teach people about rogue sharks, and like the closest thing that they had are two people being bitten in like a 2-year span by a large shark. But hey, it must have been the same shark. Those great white serial killer shows, everyone involved should be ashamed of themselves. Hooper says that this shark has staked a claim there, and he's not going to leave until the food supply runs out, or if the people kill the shark. That's the only possible way out of the situation, according to the shark expert.
And he is going to continue to feed here as long as there is food in the water. You're either going to kill this animal or you're going to cut off its food supply.
You got to close the beaches and take away the food source, or you kill the shark. And here's where I bring this back to my shark culling films, because it's usually politicians saying things this stupid. In fact, Dr. Christopher Neff, I think, called it Jaws policy, Jaws politics, shark bite politics, where you act exactly like the film Jaws and pretend that a Hollywood movie is reality and that you need to behave this way. And again, it's masked as concern for human lives, but it's about dollars.
We depend on the summer people here for our very lives.
You are not going to...
That's what's really scary. You know, that's what makes humans monsters. Whatever it takes to keep the money coming in, you know, even if that means slaughtering ridiculous amounts of every species of animal in the ocean, as long as people think something's being done for their safety. Let's continue with the theme of purpose. And let's narrow that down to Cape Cod. So Hooper says that, hey, this shark has discovered that there's a food source here. And all these people going to the beach is like ringing the dinner bell.
A shark is attracted to the exact kind of splashing and activity that occurs whenever human beings go in swimming. You cannot avoid it.
If you open the beaches on the 4th of July, it's like ringing the dinner bell, for Christ's sake.
So let's apply that to real life. What historically happened with sharks there? There was that incident inland in the river with bull sharks. But regarding white sharks, what has happened there historically? Well, after Jaws, white sharks were hunted basically to the point of extirpation. They were locally extinct for a while. What brought white sharks back? I'm going to pause and let you think about this one. How many people know why white sharks began returning to that area? It was marine mammal protection and a recovery of the gray seal population. Maybe some other seal species too, but that was the primary one, if I recall correctly. That is why the white sharks came back. So what lesson does that tell us? You know, humans have been using that coast nonstop and in increasing numbers. So did white sharks respond to the dinner bell of people splashing and an increase of humans going into the ocean? I mean, that's a lot of years of people using the ocean without it bringing back white sharks, even after white sharks were protected. Well, it was the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and it was the return of their actual instinctual food source. That's pretty hard to deny. And I can build on that by saying every white shark aggregation site in the world has a colony of pinnipeds. Guadalupe, the Farallones, Ano Nuevo, let's see, all three of the major shark islands in South Africa, the Neptune Islands of South Australia, New Zealand, and what makes the East Coast different is that they don't have an island, but the seal population pulls right up there on the beaches, again attracting white sharks. Now we'll talk about Durban more in a different podcast, but Durban is the exception in South Africa of not having a pinniped colony, but it is along the white shark migration path. In fact, it's along the migration path for many species. It's a gathering of animals. It's a feeding opportunity for various species. And humans decide to go swimming there. As long as I brought up that holiday roast and the shark loving it so much that it took it within a minute of being in the water, let's talk about the role of livestock in some of the more notable historic shark attack crises that humans have faced. The Red Sea, Egypt, they dump livestock. You put enough smell of death in the water, even if it's not something that the shark would instinctively want to eat. Again, this is nature, opportunistic feeding, the chance to consume calories. South Africa, the Natal coast, Durban. There are a bunch of river outlets there, right along that coast. And there's agriculture all up inside. And even in many of the shark bite files that I've read, it states that there had been heavy rains and river flow and livestock being washed down the river. And in some cases, it was intentional dumping. And then here come humans bathing around the river mouth, or even fishing around the river mouth, that we humans have basically baited and set up as a death trap for other humans. And then we say, oh my God, what the hell was the shark doing? Evil animal. We create the perfect recipe for human death and then blame anything except for ourselves. Building on what I just said about white sharks returning for the pinnipeds and not for the humans, let's again look at Hooper, the shark expert in the film, calling a white shark a man-eater, and calling the tiger shark even a man-eater.
It probably is, Martin. It probably is. It's a man-eater. It's extremely rare for these waters.
This is a great white, Larry. A big one. And any shark expert in the world will tell you it's a killer. It's a man-eater. Look, this...
Is that fair? You got these rare, extremely rare occasions throughout history where this incredible predator has actually consumed a human. And I say consumed very specifically because the number of times humans have died from being bitten is different from the number of times humans have died from being bitten and consumed. So just like Hooper pulled a license plate out of the tiger shark, saying that it will scavenge just about anything.
He didn't need a car, did he?
Well, similarly, doesn't that mean that if you pulled a human arm out, that doesn't mean that it killed the human any more than that shark ate the car? But we as humans live such privileged lives that we eat everything. It doesn't even have to be on the same continent as us. Oh, this sounds interesting. Let's import this animal from this exotic location and we'll eat it too. We eat everything. We eat everything. So if we're going to call a shark a man-eater, is that even politically correct anymore? I have to call it human eater, Homo sapien eater. Then what are we called? We devour everything on the planet. I don't know, some of you are saying, well, that means that we're superior. Okay. It actually means that we are an ecological disaster that eats things for the F of it instead of it being any sort of beneficial role. And I don't see that same mentality carrying forward when a physically superior white shark eats one of us. A white shark just ate the superior species. Well, where's the respect? Where is the crowning of the white shark as superior? No. Now that was evil. I mentioned earlier that people like the mayor of Amity Island actually exist, but it gets worse, because in his case, he was trying to hide the problem to make money. Now people will use the fear to get what they want. And what they want is to wage war on nature, masking it as concern for human safety, no matter how bad the plan is. Seriously, because the statistics don't even support that shark culling makes people safer. But that doesn't seem to matter. People are just comforted that there is an action taking place, humans versus nature, that is supposedly making people safer. I thoroughly examined Western Australia, New South Wales, the Durban coast, and I can tell you that it's absolutely like this bad guy mayor in the movie Jaws. This is about hotels and tourism, not about human safety. If, in fact, there were a single massive rogue shark that could be removed from the area that would solve all the problems, sure, maybe. But these are just death nets, killing anything and everything unfortunate enough to come within their area. And when I say within that area, I'm not talking about animals straying into human territory. I'm talking about animals going where they are supposed to go. Migration paths, feeding areas, what God told them to do, or what Mother Nature told them to do, whichever version of that you're more comfortable with. But these animals aren't straying. They're where they're supposed to be, and we decided to recreate there. Animals that are going to keep coming because nature says they're supposed to be going through that area. And that includes the sharks. In the movie Jaws, you need to ask yourself why a 25-foot, 3.5-ton animal is interested in scavenging on tiny creatures along the coastline. In the real world, you need to ask yourself how humans are able to enter a food chain, an active food chain, including the most feared predator on the planet, and come out unscathed 99.9% of the time. So back to the movie Jaws specifically, and this expert. Humans can very easily be influenced, even if it is in the movies. Someone playing a shark expert, repeatedly saying things that are inaccurate, leaves a mark, even if it's subconsciously, in the minds of the audience. Especially if the film is well done and the characters are believable. In the case of Jaws, both are true. Personally, I think the messages that Hooper sent and the dialogue between him and Chief Brody were more damaging than the actual violent parts of the film. What do you think? And can I just play the clip where he's talking about the baby 4-foot thresher shark ripping his boat apart?
A 4.5-foot baby thresher shark who proceeded to eat my boat. He ate my oar hooks and my seat cushions. He turned an inboard into an outboard, scared me to death. And I swam back to shore. And when I was on the beach, I turned around and I actually saw my boat being taken apart. And ever since then, yes, I have been studying shark.
Does anyone else think that that's a little weird? That a shark that is primarily known as a fish eater in the first place was unafraid of a boat as a baby and spent its energy tearing inedible parts of a boat apart? It just doesn't make any sense. Well, there's certainly more I could say, but I will save it for another episode. We're going to look at Durban more and shark culling and movies in the next episode. Thanks for watching.